David had a great idea, I thought, for a workshop. We're trying to figure out what we would do here. We realized a lot of people come to tenor guitar not as their first instrument, right? Normally, but usually from another instrument.
Their last
instrument.
Everybody's looking for it. We found it. No.
We found it, yeah. Yeah, so, you know, I was thinking, I came to tenor guitar kind of from the tenor banjo world. And there's a lot of different ways you know, play a guitar-like instrument versus a banjo. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk a little bit about that. And of course...
Right, I came to it, I guess, from the mandolin. And I was trying to think of when I got my first tenor guitar. I can't really put my finger on it.
Yeah.
But sometime in the far distant past. But I know there are different ways of tuning it, but of course I like the fifth tuning. Although being a mandolin player, and I have small hands, so the longer scale is kind of a challenge.
Right.
But I had already been used to mandocello, which
right.
is an even longer scale. And
Yeah.
I just, I basically look at it as a big mandolin with single strings. And in fact, it's, you know, I think, and it's interesting, the tenor guitar was actually developed as a transition.
Mm-hmm.
That
right.
was its purpose, I think, is because the tenor banjo, unfortunately, was losing popularity raise.
Yeah, yeah.
It made a big splash in the 20s, in the early 20s, and with, and I think it all ties in with records and radio technology, and the fact that the banjo was a very loud instrument, cut through an orchestra or a Dixieland band or
both,
horns, essentially.
Yeah, before amplification. Yeah.
And I think as technology advanced, recording technology in both radio and records, I think they got more sophisticated in how they could record quieter instruments. And I guess the guitar became the instrument of choice with band leaders around the late 20s.
Late 20s.
And so I think this instrument was developed to kind of wean banjo players, tenor banjo players and plectrum banjo players off their instruments onto the guitar. It was like a transition.
I know, you know, reading, you know, at the American Banjo Museum where I work, we have a lot of archives of old Crescendo magazines and the Cadenza, Music Trade Review. And so these are the publications of the day where all the different music instrument manufacturers were kind of showing off their new wares, hoping stores would want to buy them. So I found a couple articles, actually when we were making that album, you know, the Tenor Madness album. I was looking through all this stuff and realized, yeah, a lot of these companies, Vega and Wayman and Paramount, you know, they were advertising this tenor, sometimes they call it a tenor lute, or eventually tenor guitar. But
tenor harp.
Tenor harp, yeah, Paramount, yeah. And they're trying to sell, you know, they're saying, hey, look, you can be a guitar player too without having to learn a whole new tuning and a whole, you know, basically putting a banjo neck on a guitar body.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, but of course now the tenor guitar has kind of become its own thing. We have, like, for example, how many people here tune it in CGDA, like a tenor banjo? Anybody? Yeah, a couple. Yeah.
I better leave.
Yeah, yeah. And how many people tune it as an octave mandolin in G? Okay, got a few of those, right? What about guitar tuning? Guitar? Yeah. So there's really at least, you know, 3 tunings.
Yeah.
You know. So once again, I mean, you usually come to it from another instrument.
How did Nick Reynolds tune?
Guitar tuning,
guitar,
baritone. Yeah. Chicago tuning is the... And by the way, that's a legitimate tuning. I mean, you hear some people, especially in the tenor banjo, 4-string banjo world, they'll kind of, you know, thumb their nose at it almost like it's not a real tuning. But guys were using that, the teens and 20s too, So I think whatever you like, there's, whatever makes you happy. I know Tim May here, he uses that tuning and sounds great on it,
What about you guys? What do you use? What tuning do you
Well, we both tune it in fifths.
use? In G or C?
C.
I use C.
Yeah. Yeah, I got used to, a mandola, it's tuned like a mandola, even though the scale is a lot longer,
Yeah.
so that's, I actually just collected tenor guitars because I did a lot of traveling. I got interested in old vintage instruments, and because they're so cool and sound so good, and for years, tenor guitars were always a lot cheaper than their guitar counterparts, and I, they're tuned in fifths. I can at least play them, sort of, and then I ran across a lot of cool tenor guitars in the past 30, 40 years, so I accumulated a bunch of them and never really played them very much, unfortunately, and until I met this guy, and he was interested in seeing a lot of these things, and
Oh yeah.
and we became instant buddies, and I also have a few tenor banjos. I just like anything in fifths
Yeah.
because part of me can instantly relate to it. I kind of let the theoretical part. I don't really think in the actual key. I actually think in the mandolin key, and just make the guys in the band play in a different key.
Transpose,
But
yeah.
my
Hey.
mind is still, and I wrote a tune on the mandolin years ago called Opus 38, and I like the sound of it on the mandola. And actually, the melody never really hits that bottom string, so
Yeah.
it's pretty much, although, when I play it on mandola, I use that bottom string, but anyhow, I kind of dug the mandola's little different tonality. All of these instruments, provide you with a voice, and they all are a little different, or a lot different.
Yeah.
I mean, this one's in that category,
For
sort
sure.
of.
Yeah.
I like this National because it's loud, and it's sweet in a way,
Oh, yeah.
and it's set up really. It just feels good to play it, but there are many things I can't do on it that just like the basic
Thanks, John.
bluegrass chop chord
Appreciate it.
is
So
really
you're left.
You're right. Yeah.
King Kong or something. Have giant. Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
you need to taste
But,
it.
thank
Do you want
John.
some more sugar in?
No. You have to extract the sugar.
There you go.
But the thing with any transition is you have to let some things go and embrace others.
Right.
So
Yeah, like for you, you were talking earlier about tremoloing, and this probably would go against what you would think, but we'll explain the difference of double strings versus.
well, it's hard to explain, but it's just a lot harder for me to tremolo on a single string.
Mhm.
It just, for some reason, that tremolo is somehow aided by the double strings. I don't know what it is, or maybe it's just I got used to it.
That's really funny you mentioned that real quick. I just remembered when I was a little kid, I just started playing the tenor banjo, and the tremolo is like, you have to do it to play tenor banjo, And I was so frustrated because I just couldn't get it. I was trying to plant my finger on the head and do all this stuff. And I went to our grandparents' house, and he had an old K mandolin on the wall. And I grabbed it and knew it was in fifths, so I played my C chord, it was G chord, blah, blah, blah. And I learned that trip when we were staying with him for about a week how to tremolo on the mandolin first.
Oh wow.
It's funny you
But-
mentioned. I haven't thought of that in years, but that's where I kind of learned to tremolo. Was on that mandolin, and maybe it's the extra tension of. I don't know. I don't
Well,
know
that's-
what it is, or the wider string. I don't know.
That's something I always could do, and now it's very, even on mandolin, it just, at my age, for some reason, it's a lot harder to do. When I started, that was the only thing I could do, and I just really tremoloed everything I could. And I love that kind of haunting sound that it produces, and got more or less well known for the tremolo, but in the past bunch of years, I've gotten more into sustain without tremoloing, which was the idea, I guess, behind the tremolo, is to sustain a note by rapidly reiterating it.
Yeah, we don't have a bow like a
Yeah,
violin.
so,
or
but
something.
this instrument, is very, that's got a, it's got a lot of sustain relative to a mandolin, or probably even a tenor banjo.
Oh yeah, tenor banjo, yeah, really. Which is like he was just saying. I think one of the reasons tremolo is so common on tenor banjo is because we really don't have much sustain. You hit a note and it goes plunk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like it for that. We did this project, Tenor Madness, and
It's madness.
got a chance to use a lot of these instruments that had never been recorded.
There are over 50 unique instruments on it. Yeah, 22 songs with over 50 unique instruments. So it really, we put the madness in tenor madness for
Yeah.
sure.
And
Yeah.
of course, he had access to a lot of great instruments at the Banjo Museum, including the one and only 1929 Gibson Florentine bass banjo
Yeah.
that weighs how much?
I don't even know. I still feel it in my back. They're from carrying around.
It's like 60 pounds.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, giant.
Why?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why? Who knows?
That's
Yeah, exactly.
why
Only
not?
Florentine.
Someone,
Yeah, why not? Exactly. Yeah, there's some very weird instruments, but
Yeah.
I like that tenor lute, the Gibson.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, that's very.
Yeah.
That's the first time I had ever seen one in the wild.
Yeah, I have a 8-string tenor lute, called a TL4 that I got in Norm's Rare Guitars a
LA.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Is that tuned in fifths too?
Pardon?
Is the lute tuned in fifths?
I tune that, I believe, in I think,
Yeah, I think.
I tune it as an octave mandolin.
Like an octave?
Yeah, it's tuned in fifths.
Yeah, but low. Yeah.
But I guess it could be tuned
Yeah, because the scaling.
any old way, and
Yeah, that's it. That's another point. Talking about the transition from other instruments. If you come from mandolin, you probably play a lot with your, third finger.
Yeah.
But with this scale length, 23
Yeah.
inches or so, it's kind of hard to.
Yeah, I
mean, you can
noticed.
do it.
I automatically, there's one of the songs we play that I wrote on the mandolin. There's some chromatic runs in it, and I found myself fingering it differently on this instrument because of that.
Okay. Well, and when I play mandolin, I'm so used to using my pinky finger, my fourth finger, all the time. It's almost I have to go back to using my third finger more.
Yeah.
It's real similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you when you get 2 frets per finger? Do you do that with the tenor?
For me, I this is just me, so I'm speaking for myself here, but I sort of think of it as 1 fret per finger, and then I shift a lot. So I keep my hand kind of, I will stretch and grab things, but I will, like if I'm doing a chromatic scale, for example, I would probably start, and let's just say a C. I would do something like this. Use that open string to my advantage, then shift, And then I'm not saying this is the best way to do it, but I use my first finger down.
Yeah.
That's the way and then it's the opposite going up. That's just how I learned, It is an awkward scale. I've often wondered why they chose 23 inches. And one guy told me, because it's pretty long, you would think it'd be more like 21 or 20 or something. 18 for mandola, right?
Yeah.
But one guy did explain to me, and I don't know if this is true, but that, it wasn't till the late, when was A kind of standardized to 440? Kind of around the late 30s? Yeah, or is it still, at least in the States. But I heard a theory that, at the time, A was lower pitched, quite a bit lower pitched. And maybe that had something to do with it, because, right now with these A strings, you really can't go past about an 11 with, that's about your maximum for 23 inches. And it's really tough because the tension is so tight. So you have to match it with these, but, so I don't know. It's an interesting scale to choose for the key of C.
Yeah, it's interesting. The old Gibson mandolins, it's almost impossible to find one where you don't have to move the bridge back.
Huh.
And almost every mandolin you see that's set up, you'll see that imprint of where it used to be. And I'm wondering if that might have something to do with what you're talking about.
Maybe. I hadn't thought about that.
A being a lower, and
It would go back, yeah.
I know that after a few years, I'd say maybe 8 or 9 years of playing the mandolin, and I was using Gibson Monel strings or bronze strings. I decided they weren't heavy enough, and I had Diodario. We had, some of you might remember the Mandolin World News. I had a little publication, quarterly publication for mandolin players, and we decided to get strings made, and we made 3 different sets, which we called light, medium, and heavy. And the mediums, and we had Diodario. I like their bronze sound of their bronze strings, and I figured out gauges that I thought would work, and the medium turned out to be their J74. That became their Starship mandolin set, And lately I've been experimenting with light gauge strings, which I think they're 10, maybe 14, 24 and 38, something like that.
Something like that.
And they actually sound pretty good, and you get more sustain out. Every time you gain something, you lose something else. So it's always kind of a trade-off,
Does that also, if you're a certain type of mandolin construction can't handle a certain amount, like
that's true. Yeah,
like
like a bowl back you wouldn't want to put on.
Yeah,
you want to put
classical.
lighter strings on that.
Interesting.
It's just, it gets down to your personal preference, what you like the sound of, what you like the feel of,
What about picks? Here's another thing. When I
dog
transition,
pick, what else?
Yeah, right. Because on the banjo, transitioning, a thick guitar pick it doesn't work for me. I mean, traditionally, what banjo players have used was more like a medium pick. So I was used to that for a long time. I mean, we're talking 0.72, 75, somewhere in that range, millimeters. And I'd been used to that forever. And then when I started playing tenor guitar, I noticed the tone I was getting with that thin pick. I didn't like it. It was very splatty sounding, real thin. And so some of my guitar buddies recommended a thick pick. And sure enough, it just really changed the whole sound. So that was a transition for me. I had to get used to. I was not used to that feel.
Yeah. Well, I experimented with every conceivable kind of pick.
I bet.
And I arrived at this, and which
like
is
these.
a thicker pick. I used to, use tortoiseshell, and but I actually like the sound of the plastic better.
Yeah.
It's a little sweeter to me, and the beveling is very important. That's how the edges get kind of finished off. And I guess what I've been trying to do is kind of mellow out the. Often the mandolin is criticized as being too tinny, thin, too harsh on
Brash,
the ear.
yeah, just like a banjo.
Whatever.
Yeah, I'm used to that.
And I found that, a thinner pick adds a little, some kind of high end, the
Yep.
click of that pick adds something to the tone,
Mhm.
whereas the thicker pick
Yeah.
doesn't. And
Yeah.
so I don't really think I get less treble, but I think the thinner pick gets more.
Mhm.
And also it's slightly less body to the tone,
That's a good way to
or
describe it. yeah.
depth,
What about because what you told me about these was pretty interesting, the shape of the point.
Yeah, well,
That's a big deal too.
when the original design was all the edges which are rounded were the same, and I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago they sent me a batch that had the center, if you call it a point, was more pointy than the others, and I kind of like that, and
Yeah, I like these a lot.
So we retain that.
Yeah.
I don't know who thought of doing
Wasn't
that or
purposeful.
how that happened. I don't recall that it was me.
Well, yeah, yeah. For my banjo picks, like once again, they're more medium gauge. I'll purposefully round off, and I use kind of a triangular shape, sort of like this. But you can get almost 3 different tones. You have one that's really pointy. If I'm playing like the Harry Reeser music or something from the 20s, and one's kind of in between, and then one really rounded one that's great for more modern. I don't know. It's a warmer, fuller sound. So that makes a big difference, just the shape of the point, Yeah.
So the banjo, do you play a 17 or a 19 fret banjo?
That's a good question. Yeah, I play 19 fret.
And why do you like 19?
That's kind of the standard.
More notes.
I mean,
Isn't that
yeah,
all-
yeah,
isn't
2
that
more
all-
notes. Yeah.
Is that what a plectrum one
No,
is?
plectrum is 22 frets.
22, okay.
And it's tuned kind of like a 5-string banjo has a lot of tunings, but it was sort of the low C tuning of a 5-string without the high G. And you played it with a plectrum, hence the term
Oh, okay.
plectrum. So instead of your fingers, you use a pick. And they retained that tuning and just felt like this drone string. You didn't need it, so they made a 4-string neck. But it retained the scale and the tuning. And that's a long scale. The original plectrums were 27, even more. Sometimes Orpheum brass bands, they
yeah.
get 29 inches. 20.
Eager.
Oh, now that's a different Pete Seeger. That's a whole different thing. That's a long
Yeah.
neck.
So why do the Irish players like a shorter scale?
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. Actually, now they're kind of moving away from that. When you had an Irish tenor banjo, by the way, is usually tuned in octave G tuning for fiddle and mandolin players to transition to a banjo. And you have to remember the Irish tenor banjo is not very old at all. It's a more recent, modern thing. So they found it easier, I think, because they were used to coming from a fiddle or a mandolin, to have a shorter scale. And then they also liked them to be open back. Now, all the pros that I know are using 19 frets. They like archtop tone rings because with that low tuning, it can be muddy unless that archtop ring brightens it up a little bit and balances it out.
Very muddy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you think it's wrong strings.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not muddy.
I was going to ask you real quick on those strings you're talking about. Was that 80-20 bronze or phosphor?
No, phosphor bronze, yeah.
Cool.
I like
I
that.
like phosphor. I was wondering,
Yeah.
Hey Tyler, have you ever tried tuning a plectrum in fifths? Does
Yeah.
it work?
Not
you
in
have to
C.
have
Yeah.
No, well, not right. Not
Yeah,
C,
you can get it to B flat
B flat,
sometimes, or
maybe.
even A. Yeah, it's pretty sound. Yeah,
Yeah, is it?
Yeah,
I've never,
yeah.
I've never heard it.
it's kind of nice. Yeah. Did you want to play anything?
Yeah, maybe we should rehearse our.
Yeah.
Beautiful arrangement.
That was fun. That's a pretty tune.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think tenors, I mean, I hope they enjoy. I mean, it's nice to see all you guys here. I mean, it's a beautiful instrument. I hope it enjoys a little bit of a resurgence, you know, because it's a unique instrument. There's multiple ways to tune it, and it fits well in multiple genres, I think, too. That's a great
You want
tune.
to try that?
We're in F here. Yeah, you want to kick it off?
Let's
Yeah.
see.
There's a transition.
Yeah.
It's a longer scale. Yeah. You know, it's funny thinking about that. We'll play that sometimes where he's on mandolin, you know, and so we'll do different
I should have
keys.
stayed on mandolin.
But I think about it when I play mandolin, like you said earlier, I'm thinking in C still. So that's something that you guys don't, in my opinion, you know, don't worry
Yeah.
too much about the chord names. Go with your, you know, I mean, the shapes.
The main
sound,
thing is
you know.
make it easy for yourself.
Right.
You know, whatever
Right.
that means. And unfortunately, I often don't. But I'm trying, you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I think it's easier. I've noticed through the years that my left hand is, you know,
Quite a bit longer.
quite a bit longer than my right. You know, I
Same
think
with me.
it's from stretching.
Yeah.
And a number of years ago, for the mandolin player that has everything, I had my friend Steve Gilchrist build a diminutive mandolin called a piccolo mandolin, tuned up a minor third and smaller. And it was very cool, but I realized that it's a lot harder to crimp as opposed to stretching. Even though that's, you know, because you're reaching for it at least as opposed to,
Yeah.
you know.
No,
So
I can see that for sure. Yeah.
I didn't use that instrument too much,
Yeah. See why?
I'm afraid.
Yeah. That's neat. Hey, how are we doing on time here? I know we don't want to keep too long.
10 minutes.
Okay,
About
good.
2 hours, that clock.
2 hours. Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah. Any questions? Any answers?
Any rags?
Any-
So what did you mean by don't think about the chord names just a second ago?
Well, now this is coming from me. I'm an ear player. You know, I play with my ear quite a bit. But sometimes it's more confusing. Just go with your gut.
Yeah,
Well,
what are you
and-
thinking?
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
if you're transitioning from another like mandolin, I just think of the position.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
I play this as if it were a mandolin, even though it's harder in a lot of ways. I just, you know, I play it just like I'd finger on the mandolin. I don't think about what chord I'm playing.
Or what key you're in?
Yeah, you know, that's his
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
No, but you know, you know, if I write a chart for somebody, like we're going to play a few tunes tonight, and I realized all the charts I had for him are, he'll read it in the proper key. you
Yeah,
know,
I'll
but
try.
He's thinking, I mean, you think of that as, when you play what I call a G chord, it's C,
C.
and you think,
Yeah.
you're thinking C.
Right.
Right,
You
so,
have to transpose.
for
the
example, I have a
charts.
tune in C,
Yeah.
I transposed it to F
Yes.
so that he can read it. But when I play it, I'm not thinking that way, I'm just thinking how I play it on the mandolin.
Right.
It's the same
Yeah,
with a
you know.
ukulele and a guitar.
I mean, there's an advantage of writing tunes, that by the time they get written, you usually know them, or at least what they're supposed to be. And so I don't have to think of, well, some of them I do, you know, it depends.
Well, that's funny. It reminded me of that, you know, Red Hot Strings camp. Dennis was there. He was learning this Harry Reeser tune called Lollipops, and it's in the key of A for tenor banjo, but you can't. You have to play it in the key of E on the mandolin to have the right range. So we worked up this stupid arrangement where you're constantly modulating back and forth between A and E. So every time I started it in A, and then he would take a melody, but then we'd have to modulate to E. And so you're just constantly, that was a workout, you know. But it shows you, you know, sometimes you don't have a choice. You have to play it the keys native to the instrument or the tune, you know. It
Yeah.
sounds better that way.
I mean, it's easier for me to just play this thing like that last tune. You just played that in F for you.
Yeah. But if you
To
pick
me,
up the
it's
mandolin
C,
and
and
play it,
yeah, I'll
then
play
we'll do
the
it
C.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about what key I was in. I was just playing the same fingering. If I tried to play it in F, I'd have to really work on that.
Mm-hmm.
If
So-
you use the number system, you wouldn't matter what the letter was.
Yeah, that's kind of a But I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
Well, like I said, if you're transitioning from another instrument, you already, and it's tuned in fifth. I mean, assuming that it's tuned like a intervallically, like a tenor guitar,
Mhm.
then you don't really have to think about that until you're playing with other musicians, and then if they ask you what chord you're playing, you have to start transposing.
But if you were gonna do a minor third like E flat, are you ever gonna want some open string stuff, so put a capo on the first fret, or not? Or are you always gonna just leave it in the C tuning and
Well, you know, I get to pick what I'm playing on the guitar. But yeah, I mean,
I don't ever
I
really
have
use
some
it.
tunes in C minor. They would be F minor.
Mhm.
You know.
Right.
Yeah, I never used
Yeah.
a capo on the mandolin. So.
I don't
well,
really.
that's
Yeah.
a heresy.
Yeah. I mean, I might have slapped one on once to see what
Jimmy
it sounded
Gabriel
like.
used to play with the capo.
It's high enough.
Yeah, it's like that joke. Why did the banjo player not get a ticket for parking the handicap spot? It's because he put his capo on the dashboard. Just kidding. No, I have nothing against capos. I just never learned with one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I figured this was my.
Well,
capo.
you know, for bluegrass,
Four strings.
a lot of the banjo and guitar sounds are kind of based in that, you know.
You need the open string.
Yeah,
That's the key.
You open- yeah.
Well, yeah, and you know, for example, I had this tune Opus 57, and Tony Rice put capo on the third fret and played it in E minor position, you know, because he wanted that open, you know.
So, yeah.
And there is something to be said, you know, that open G
Oh
chord.
yeah, banjo. Second fret.
Yeah,
A.
same thing.
Yeah.
Scrugg. You know, it's a limitation, but it's
But
all.
it's also
You know, I mean, limitations are what kind of define styles in a way. I mean, sometimes,
and-
often.
And I came from I didn't come from a bluegrass background at all, so it'd be really hard to use a capo in traditional jazz. You know, you're constantly glissing up and down the neck and modulating, and so I don't know. But I guess on mandolin, you really don't. I mean, you don't use it much, or at all.
Well, I had to learn the best I could to play in different keys. Now, we've never played this tune, but he's a genius anyway, so it's in G on this, so that puts it in
G on this.
D, right?
Okay.
And then the bridge, it's like 1, 4, and 5 on the A part, and the bridge goes to E on this, which would be B for you, I guess. And the first time it goes to A minor for me, which would be D minor for you.
Okay.
And then the repeat of that bridge, it goes to A major for me or D major for you. So, I'm
see
getting
you
warmed up.
calculating your face there.
Calculating,
I see we're going-
recalculating.
Just recalculating.
Sorry, pal, but hey, he's capable.
Yeah.
That's a cool tune. What is it?
That's called Pigeon Roost.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote that in a recording studio when I was doing an album called The Bluegrass Reunion with my old bluegrass boss, Red Allen.
Cool.
And he was, he's from a little place in Kentucky called Pigeon Roost, so it's always, you know, tough to name instrumental sometimes, so, but, you know, you take that leap beyond the fact that there are no lyrics, you can usually find something.
Yeah, name it whatever you want.
Well, having the nickname Dog helps. You
Wow,
know.
yeah, you know.
Dog's Rag, Dog's Bull,
Chili
Dog,
Dog.
Chili Dog, Pupville, Bow Wow. I mean, it's endless.
Oh man.
What's your thought process when you start to write a song? You build it off a lick or?
Yeah, kind of. I just
Steal it or-
most of them are from just noodling around on the mandolin, and I'll find something that you would call, in the classical world, a motif, or
Idea.
just an idea.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in a motel room one time, and I did. It all came from.
Nice.
You know, just sometimes it takes me years to finish them off, and sometimes, you know.
Because you don't have a degree in music, do you?
I've been given the third degree.
I'm in that club
No,
too.
I don't actually.
Yeah.
I don't even have the degree I got. You know, I actually got a degree. Well, I got it, but I never took it out of the tube. From New York University, you know, got a bachelor's degree. I
What was
keep
that?
thinking I should ask them to send me one. You know. No, I unfortunately don't. Well, I took a few music courses, but they weren't theoretical, really. I mostly learned from experience and getting to play with people that were way better than me and knew what they were doing and paying attention,
Yeah. True.
just noticing things, you know. Like when I first was trying to play bluegrass, and I discovered that Flatt and Scruggs records were kind of good music -1 records for mandolin, because it didn't have a lot of mandolin on it. And I was trying to play along with their record of Rollin' My Sweet Baby's Arms. It's really fast. And I realized that I was behind the beat, you know, that I wasn't with that record. And so you have to ultimately become very critical, or critical. Just depending on how much you want to confess to yourself what you don't know.
That's really true, man. That's,
So I just kept trying to get with that record, and or a metronome or anything, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I think the basics are true for any instrument, you know. There's the 3 T's: tone, time, or actually I should say time, tone, and taste. And you know, there's a few others that don't begin with T, but you know, but the basics are, you can never know them enough. You know, it's still like just timing, and you know, different styles have different. What's the right word? Characteristics. You know, it's hard to learn a style. You can get sheet music for just about anything now, but the different like bluegrass is kind of forward motion, you know, whereas rhythm and blues is kind of laid back. And you have to really tune into that, you know, and listening. Listening is just the most important part of music to me, whether you're playing or not. Listening to it and listening to a record. I used to think, well, if people just could hear Django Reinhardt, they'd all just start buying Django Reinhardt records. Well, that ain't true, because listening for a lot of people isn't what I do. You know, I really focus. Listening is a big deal. Whereas a lot of people, it's just kind of the background, what's going on in the background. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not, I'm not knocking it, but if you're going to be serious about music, you just got to really pay attention to the good stuff and the bad stuff.
And the bad, yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyhow.
How do you feel about, interesting, you know, just in your experience when you're playing versus practicing solo versus playing with others? I mean, there's a balance there, right? I mean, obviously you got to learn the basics, you got to keep yourself in shape. Playing with others, really hearing what's going on around you and making that happen. I mean, how does that work for you? Was that you know, essential? I know it was essential for you eventually, but for everybody, I would imagine.
Well, you know, it's depends on, you know, the role you're in, really. You know, playing, if you're just getting together with friends, it's one thing. If you're rehearsing for a concert, it's another thing. If you're, you know, a guest in somebody's band, you know, it's just the situation is really, you know, but I just, you know, if you're just playing tunes that you're not really up on, or if you're, it's really, the situations are so different, you know. But if you're just jamming casually, you know, just try and fit in and be supportive most of the time, or all of the time, really. And you know, sometimes, you know, everybody has kind of a different time feel, you know. So, and that's the root of many problems in bands, because, you know, this guy, he's rushing, but he doesn't want to admit that, or he's, you know, and so, you know, there are musicians I played with, they're like a jackhand, you know, they ignore if somebody, they just, you know, like the bass player I knew, Buell Neidlinger, he played a gig with George Burns. He was about like 100 years old. He did a country music. He got into country music, and we were doing a gig at the Holiday Bowl, and George, I mean, he was just singing, and he turned the beat around, you know, and the whole band went with him, but not Buell, you know. He just kept reading that chart, you know, because he, you know, so, you know, I think if the goal is to make it sound good, you know, whatever that can mean, you know, if it's, you know, on a mandolin, you know, they say mandolin players spend half their life tuning and the other half being out of tune. And, you know, just being in tune, you know, is a challenge, right. You know, and in time, and you know, if people are coming from different situations, you know, this guy's a bluegrass player, that guy's a jazz sax player, that, you know, I mean, you have to try to come together. On the other hand, if you're in my band or his band, or I'm in his band or Willie Nelson's band, you got to look to what the leader wants. You know?
Yeah, I remember.
You know.
Sorry,
No, go ahead.
I was just thinking. I worked for Ray Price for many years, the country singer, and I played bass with him. And there were several times he would have an idea. You know, he'd tell maybe a steel guitar player, he'd say, "Son, why don't you try playing that up an octave a little higher?" You know, and the guy would go, I knew real quick if he was going to last in the band or not.
Yeah.
Because depending on how they answered that,
Yeah.
like this one time, this guy goes, "Well, I don't, Chief, I don't think that'd sound very good. I think it
Yeah.
sounds better down here." You go,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay." It's like, and then all of a sudden, after three strikes,
He ain't
they're
there
out.
anymore, yeah.
He's the guy signing the checks.
On the other hand, sure, yeah.
Yeah. And Ray was great. Like if you played something, he just the guy's been playing the same songs for 60 years, and he was just trying to change it up a little bit. And sometimes what his idea was great, it worked out great. And sometimes Ray goes, "Never mind, do what you're doing before."
Yeah, right.
It was real cool. It was real.
Well, everybody's a little different, and I found if I wrote the tunes, and with paying a bunch of guys to play, I could make them. Hey, if somebody, and it was, I like to think of it as a benevolent dictatorship. But I was open to suggestions, but I was also saying, I also had definite ideas. Not that was the end all of music. It's just just the way I wanted to hear that song. A lot of it has to do with what the bass player played, or time. That's too fast, or I really don't like dragging or rushing. Not that I'm perfect, but I
don't know.
You notice things.
I gotta say, man, when we were doing that recording, one of the things that I'm just gonna brag on you for a second here. So sorry, but we would do these tunes without a click track, and we'd go back and listen to a take and a couple in a row, and I was just shocked. It really didn't drift much at all, and it's because, I don't know. That was pretty cool to me, because that's really hard to do, to keep tempo the same after long takes. We're talking long, full takes, and I was really
Well, you
impressed.
get into a certain groove,
yeah.
Especially, it takes, it takes a band, it's not like all the rhythm is dependent on the drummer or something. Everybody's got to do their part, Everybody's got, the drummer can't make you. I mean, maybe he can, but it's not, everybody has got to feel something the same way, and sometimes I've had guys, had a guitar player for 9 years who was from Argentina. He was great at Latin stuff, and he was, he learned how to play bluegrass, I help, and it's you just have to want to, or be open to something, and sometimes it's difficult because a lot of people come out of, everybody starts somewhere in some style that they really dig or they're really good at, and at some point they might get a gig doing something else, or asked to do something else, and they, it's good to be flexible enough to do that, and you really have to listen to, who's the leader, usually it's like, in my case, it was Linda Ronstadt or somebody that knew what they wanted, or Red Allen, I just paid attention and listened to what they were asking me to do, and usually it was a good idea. And even if I didn't think it was, I wanted that paycheck.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly right.
I think to be a good chief, you got to learn to be a good Indian.
Right, it works, but it's be a team player for sure. Yeah. Well, any other questions? I think we're probably about wrapped up. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
Dog, for being here. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't claim to be a tenor guitar player, but it's fun, and this guy, he's given me the courage to come out of the tenor guitar closet.
We need all the help we can get.